at some point I bought a second-hand phone, which unfortunately was a stolen phone, and I didn't know. And I was tracked. And I remember when the police came for me, I was at Nyayo House. Yeah, I was applying for my passport. And they got me there. They took me to Central Police Station. And I was there from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday morning, they took me to court. I took a plea of not guilty. And they asked me to pay a cash bill of 150. I was not worried. I had that money in my account. So what I did is I called my best friend now, back then. And I told her, this is what is happening. Take my ATM, go withdraw money today, tomorrow, because you cannot withdraw 150 at once with the ATM. So today, tomorrow, and then come and pay bail for me. So she disappeared with my money. She disappeared completely. So I was taken to Langata Women Prison, where I was for 1 year, 8 months. Until my case was dropped for lack of evidence. At this point, I don't even know where my children are. I don't even know what is happening on the outside. Nobody came to see me. I was just there. But they pulled me out of my bed, and I asked them, who are you? They slapped me. They took me out of my bed, and they took me to my sitting room, and they gang raped me for hours. They actually broke my glass, and they cut me. I had scars. I actually have small scars on my. And they strangled me, and they would put their gun in my mouth, and they sodomized me for hours. Yeah, and this.
Welcome to the Golden Apple Show. This is your host, Jacqueline Jerry. It is said when you share your story, you lessen the shame and the stigma attached to it. When you share your story, you inspire other people. No matter how painful, no matter how gruesome, no matter how terrifying your experiences could be, you never know who could identify with your story. Imagine coming from a background where your parents separate when you're very young, and then going through molestation, and then having to go through teenage pregnancies, and then having to go through an early marriage, and then going to prison for something that our guest will share about, and then, you know, having to put the strings together and put your life back in order all over again. This is the story of one Celine, who is here today. I don't want to talk too much about her story because I know I don't want to steal the juice. Celine, sasa.
Poa sana.
I'm glad to have you here.
I'm glad. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Uko sawa baridi?
Niko sawa kabisa.
Sasa, able to introduce, alafu tupatie story yako. Juu sikuwa nataka kusema sana, nisiharibu.
Okay. My name is Celine, and I am a mother of 3, and I'm also, I work with teenage mothers and women who have been through issues in life, because I've also been through so many issues, and I know that picking up the pieces of your life is not an easy thing, and it takes so many people. It's like a circle for people to hold your hands so that you can pick yourself and be a person again.
So tell us your story. Probably start with your upbringing, and then your life through school, like that. We'll just pick it up gradually.
Okay, my story is a long one, but I'll start from when I was young, when I can remember. Dad and mom separated when I was 4 years old, and mom left. Actually, she left. She never came back, and she left us with dad. And we used to live in this setting where there is grandmother, grandfather, my dad's brothers and sisters, and we used to have my dad's cousin also, because they were schooling in, we used to live in Luakabete. I was brought up in Luakabete. They were schooling in Nairobi University, so, and they used to live very far. So our home was closer to Nairobi University, where they could commute daily. And unfortunately, okay, I never felt that my mom had left, because dad took up that role very well. Yeah, and also we had grandmother and his sisters also. Until when dad passed on when I was 7 years old, and he had an accident, a road accident, and he passed on. I didn't know how to process that, because nobody explained to me that this is what has happened. I just saw people in our home crying and all that. I saw dad's clothes soaked with blood. Nobody told me. nobody explained to me. When mom left, she left also my brother who follows me, but she left with a younger brother who was 8 months old at that time. So that was that. When dad passed on, now there's my grandmother, there's my grandfather who took us in. But grandfather was an alcoholic. He actually passed on last month. He was an alcoholic. He would hurl insults every day. Yeah, so, but my grandmother on the other side was born again, but she was also dealing with the insult of my grandfather. So this is where I was basically brought up. And my dad's brothers were not married at that time, but they married a bit later. And we had my dad's cousin now who are living with us, and they would molest me. And coming from a loved and sheltered life, and then here I am, 7 years, 8 years, I'm being molested, and nobody, I can't tell anybody about it, because I also think that my dad's brothers didn't know how to bring us up, because they didn't have children of their own. I'm the first grandchild in that home. So each time I did something, because I became a very rebellious child. I can call it rebellion. I became elusive, rebellious, because something is going on and they don't know. So each time they did something, they didn't know how to handle me. They would cane me, they would beat me. I have scars all over my body. So I'm being molested by his cousins, and they are telling me, if you try tell anyone, we'll kill you. And I'm a child, I'm 7 years, I'm 8 years. So life continued. I became an introvert. I became a very quiet child. And the only place where I built a safe place for myself in books. I immersed myself in books, as in I read books. I read Akina Mills and Boons in class 3, class 2, John Kiriamitis in class 4. By class 5, I had started reading Sidney Sheldon's and Daniel Steele's. Yeah. Each book I could get my hands on, I would read.
Before we proceed,
yes.
Just allow me to cut you short. As all this was happening, your grandmother was still in the picture.
Yes.
And you mentioned to me that you became an introvert, which communicates you were once a bubbly child, but then you became withdrawn.
Yes.
How comes nobody noticed you change in demeanor?
I've never understood that even now. But what was happening is my grandmother, all the time she was praying in fellowships, in the shamba, and I understand her very well. Remember, she's going through an abusive marriage. Yeah. So nobody noticed. And I also started bedwetting. I actually stopped bedwetting in high school. And life was very, very difficult for me, and nobody noticed. Yeah, it's like I was walking on eggshells. Like, I can't do this because this will happen. I can't do this because I'll be caned. If I try to do some, if I ask for money for maybe there's a trip in school, and I'll ask them for money. I was a child of everyone. Go ask this uncle, go ask this uncle, go ask any. Nobody took like full responsibility. Also, my grandmother was not working, so she was being given money by her children. Yeah, so the children were the ones who were responsible. So I continued to high school. I went to high school, and the molests stopped because now I'm big. And I've gone to high school also. I know these things now. I've started to understand. And in Form 2, in Form 3, I was 15 years at that time. And I think, I keep saying that I met the only guy who said, I love you. And those words were very precious to me. Those words are words I had not heard from anyone. And I fell hook, line, and sinker. And I felt that this person loves me. And within no time, I was pregnant.
He was your age mate, or?
He was older than me by 5 years. Yeah. So at 16 years, I was having my first child. And I remember the doctor asking me, you're very tiny, you're supposed to be in school. And I told him, nimesoma biology mpaka practicals. So I didn't have anything to tell him. Yeah. I didn't also understand that let me tell you the truth. The moment I went to hospital is when I realized how babies are born. Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah, I was carrying a pregnancy and I didn't know how babies are birthed. And I would look at my stomach and wonder, how will this baby come out?
Yeah. Oh my God.
I don't remember having that lesson in school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. I couldn't remember that time. And I was wheeled to theater and I had my first child at 16. I also got married at that time.
At 16?
Yeah.
To the guy?
Yeah, to the guy. And also, I keep saying that was not it was a marriage of convenience because now I'm pregnant. At that time, my grandmother had passed on. Yeah. So
There was nobody...
absolutely no one to take care of me.
Okay.
So I just went to his place and he was also not ready to be a father. 16, 20. So not ready to be a father. So that is that marriage of we have to do this because this has happened.
There's a baby.
There's a
we
baby.
Need to be together.
Yeah, and actually I thank God because I went back to school. I sat for my exams. I would leave the baby with him and yeah.
Did you even know what you're getting yourself into at this point?
No, I'm just getting married. And also the model of a marriage that I had seen was my grandmother and my grandfather. So I'm thinking of I'm living with a man. Just that.
Yeah.
And he's my husband.
Yeah,
and that's it.
That's it. There's
Yeah.
nothing else.
Yeah. Actually, I was living with his parents, which was it was messy.
Yeah.
Because they also didn't want their son to get married at that time, at that age. So it was that you just here because of a baby. And within no time, I was pregnant again at 17. And at that time, what he was doing now, my husband, he was flirting with my best friend at that time. And I would see them holding hands, and I've got no option. I have to stay here or just do something, but no one is with me.
You're on your own.
Yeah. So it got worse and I decided, let me go back home. And at this point, nobody wants me at home. And I cannot live with my grandfather, who is abusive.
Yeah.
So when I went home, there was this small house. My grandfather had moved into a bigger house, and there was this small house. And they asked me to go live there. And me, my pregnancy, and my other child, we got into that house, and I would do casual jobs and just to feed myself and my child. And I remember when labor pain came, I didn't know what it was. I remember the first child is a CS, and labor pains were very 2 hours. So when labor came, I just locked that door, got into that house with my first child, and just slept. Yeah. And I was in that house laboring for 3 days alone, without food, and with another child here.
Where was he?
He was there. He was 2 years old.
No, where was your husband?
By that time, I have left him. I've gone back home.
Yeah.
To my relatives now, and they have given me a small house where I can stay.
Yeah, but he knew you were pregnant.
He knew, but he didn't care. He was having a relationship with my friend at that time. They actually have a son who is a bit younger than my second born. And on the third day, I remember I was begging God and asking him to let us die because this is so much pain. And I was asking him, let me die and let my child die because I cannot leave my child in this world. He has no one. But on the third day in the morning, with the little strength I had, I pushed and then collapsed. Yeah, I blanked out. And a neighbor heard a scream. I think I screamed. And she came and pushed the door. So when I woke up at around 30 minutes later, she was holding a baby. And I asked her, is it a boy or a girl? And she said it's a boy, another boy. My firstborn is also a boy. And that is how I got my second child. Yeah. And I didn't even have clothes. for him. I didn't have anything. And I remember the first meal I had after that bath was she brought me a piece of ugali and black tea with no sugar. She didn't have. So that is what I had. And I remember pulling a baby shawl. I had put it as pillow. I was to hold my head when I was sleeping and covering my child. It was so dirty. And then I didn't have diapers. So I just took my t-shirt and a paper bag and wrapped my child. And that was basically what was happening. And I remember the first person who gave me a casual job was a relative. And that was a week after I had my baby. And she asked me to wash her clothes. And I washed her clothes from morning 9 to 3. And then she said they are not clean. And she gave me 50 shillings. Yeah. So that is how I went back now to casual jobs. And at 8 months, I realized this is not working. I either take myself back to my husband because this is not working. I cannot be able to fend for 2 children alone. So I took myself back to him. I took my legs and went back to his house.
Wait, during this time, like you had a baby, he's not come to visit, he's not come to check on his other child. It's
No.
just you and your kids.
Yeah, but I would see him holding my friend's hands. I would see him, I would meet him, but he didn't care. Yeah. So I took myself back to him. And I remember when I went back to that house, he came in the evening and he asked me, so you've brought yourself back? I told you you've got nowhere to go. You cannot leave me. Yeah, and life started. And it's true, I didn't have anywhere to go. Yeah. So life continued for us. And at some point, God opened doors for him. And he went to the US. And he was there for two years. And then he decided to come and see us. He would send money. Life changed. I actually even moved out from his parents' house and rented a house. Life changed for us. I started a small business. Yeah. And he would actually send me money to bank for him, a lot of money. And I did that as a faithful wife. And at some point, so he came back home. And this was 2 years later. He was coming back for some few months and then go back, yeah. And at this point we decided now, because God has now started blessing us, we can have our last child before you go back. And I got pregnant. I was 23. And as soon as that happened, wow, he took a 360-degree change, as in he changed for the worse. I had a problematic pregnancy at 2 months, so the doctor recommended bed rest. And the guy changed completely. He would leave us without food. He would go for days. And when he comes back, he would come with a woman in town and ask me, go sleep on the couch and leave the bedroom for us. Yeah. And I would leave the bedroom. And so I got so used to sleeping on the couch because I have nowhere to go. 2 kids and a pregnancy, I cannot go anywhere. Yeah. And also I've closed down my business. And it went on for quite a while. And at some point, it got worse. He would bring home 2 women, 3 women. So one day, he came home in the wee hours of the morning, around 4 a.m. It was a holiday, around October there. And the kids were home, their boys were home. And so they were in the bedroom. In the morning, they were in the bedroom. They were making a lot of noises. They were screaming. So I knocked on the door. My house was, the bedrooms were upstairs. I knocked on the door and I asked him to just keep it silent because of the children. He came out, slapped me, and rolled me down the stairs and asked me to leave. And he threw money at me and asked me to leave. And that is the day I decided, now this is it, God. This is me and you and my children. And I took the money, my 2 children, and left. And the first place I went to was the church. And I cried my heart out to God. and I asked him to lead me because this is it. This is the end for me, and I have children and a pregnancy, and I don't know what to do. So the money was around 20,000, and I looked for a small house. Now I've gone back to Lower Kabete. That is the only place other place I knew. At that time we were living in Pangani. So I looked for a small house. I got a house for 500 shillings. I bought some few items, basics, and that is how we started life. So I decided this is the money I have, and this is what will help us. So I have to start a business. The money that was remaining was 8,000. So what I did was I started going to Narok. I would buy charcoal in wholesale and bring and sell to retailers. And I did that business, which was doing so well, and until I had my daughter now. It was another CS. And I had my daughter. I had actually made up my mind I was not going back to him. So no matter how much he begged and tried to get me to go back, I was done.
He tried getting you back?
Yeah, he
even
tried
after
getting.
all he took you
Yes, yes. I was done. So I told God, this is me, you, and my children. And when my daughter was about 3 months old, I decided now I must go back to business because I'm the only one who is fending for the children. And I looked for some business, and I did some research and realized I can go to Sudan. I had a friend in southern Sudan, and I had some little money, so I'd buy clothes from Eastleigh and take to southern Sudan. I'd be there for a week. I look for someone to stay with my children. I'll be there for a week, then come back to Kenya. And the business did so well. I had so much money. Now, misfortunes were following me still. At some point, I bought a second-hand phone, which unfortunately was a stolen phone, and I didn't know. And I was tracked. And I remember when the police came for me, I was at Nyayo House. Yeah, I was applying for my passport. And they got me there. They took me to Central Police Station. And I was there from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday morning, they took me to court. I took a plea of not guilty. And they asked me to pay a cash bill of 150. I was not worried. I had that money in my account. So what I did is I called my best friend now, back then. And I told her, this is what is happening. Take my ATM, go withdraw money today, tomorrow, because you cannot withdraw 150 at once with the ATM. So today, tomorrow, and then come and pay bail for me.
Wait, this is the same best friend?
No. This is
one
another one.
Okay.
Yeah. So she disappeared with my money. She disappeared completely. Yeah. So I was taken to Langata Women Prison, where I was for 1 year, 8 months, until my case was dropped for lack of evidence. At this point, I don't even know where my children are. I don't even know what is happening on the outside. Nobody came to see me. I was just there. Until one day my case was just dropped for lack of evidence. And I remember walking from Milimani to Koja now. And I was very sick. I had typhoid and amoeba. And I went to Koja stage and asked some Makanga to give me 50 shillings for me to go to Kabete. And I went where I'd left my children. And the landlord asked me, there was a new tenant, and in my house. And he asked me, did you leave your children with me? I don't know where they are. Yeah, so I started looking for my children, and I realized what was happening is they were living everywhere. Today they're here, tomorrow they're here, the next day they're here. And I found them with someone I knew, and they looked so traumatized. I had left my daughter when she was 2 years. Now she was going to 4 years. She didn't even know me, as in she couldn't recognize me. Yeah, and they were so traumatized. And when she saw me, the lady who was living with them, she asked me, now you've come. I came to realize people knew that I was in prison, but nobody came to see me. Now you've come, now take your children and go. And I asked her, where am I going? Where am I starting? She said, I don't know. Now the stigma now, because you've been in prison. So I decided, now let me go to church, the church I used to fellowship in. And I went. I found the pastor and I explained. He knew. And he told me, now I've listened to your story and I can't help you. The only way I can help you is I'll give you 100 shillings. Go buy food and make sure you don't get pregnant. Now the notion you've been in prison for this long now, the only other thing you can do is get pregnant.
That's so insensitive.
I know. So I went, and that is how we started the life of sleeping in the streets. I would wait for Mama Bogas to finish selling at night, and we would sleep under the vibandas. Sometimes my children would go to friends, relatives, but I didn't want to burden anyone. And we stayed there. Nobody really, actually, even when I'm going through something, you can't notice easily. I'm a very, because I think because I've hidden things for so long, I got so used to that. Yeah, so I would smile with people, but nobody knew what was going on. So it is at this point when I was sleeping under those vibandas, one of those vibandas, and I was gang raped for the first time. I keep saying that those people were coming from maybe a stealing spree somewhere, and they chanced on me, and they pulled me from under, and they tore my clothes. They gang raped me, they sodomized me, and they left me for the dead. Around 12 of them. Yeah, and I had like a small phone. They didn't take that from me. And they left me there till morning. And in the morning, people found me, and I was taken to Kenyatta. And the first thing the doctors did was take me to theater because it was so bad. And I was admitted at Kenyatta for a month or so. And that is how now my journey of now starting to heal. That is how it started. But there's this friend of mine we had met in prison. She has an organization. She's called Teresa Njoroge. She has an organization that reintegrates women into the society.
The one who was a banker?
Yeah, we met in prison. And at that point, she was starting her organization. So she came to know of it, and she was my friend. And she told me, Celine, you never go back to the streets. And she looked for help for me. And a certain church came through for me. And they took my children back to school, and they would pay my rent as I continued with my therapies and all at Kenyatta. Yeah, but I would go for counseling, but I was not healing. There was so much in me, from moles, from separation, pregnancy, prison. I was not healing. I would go to a counselor and sit with her, and I would talk, and we would talk, and we would talk, and she would even start telling me her story, but I was not letting go. So, and I'm one of those people who pick up the pieces very quickly. Yeah, because I learned that when I was very young. So I picked up the pieces, I stopped going for counseling, and now Teresa told me now, because the organization had started, she told me, Celine, come and work with me. And I went to Clean Start, it's called Clean Start, and started working there. And I was put in the children department, and the children who accompany their mothers to prison. Yeah, so I was put in the children department. I was working with another lady. Now on December 2017, I had sent Christmas gifts to children who are in prison all over the country, and I was on my way home around 9:30. And just a few meters from my gate, I met some guys, and I was not worried because it was not late. And I thought these are people who know me, because you see those men who sit along the way. Yeah, and it was also Christmas time. It was on December 2023. So, and they said hi, and I hid back, and they told me, Mama. And I asked them, why are you asking me to Mama, yet you don't know me? They said, if you dare walk, we'll kill you. So one came on my right side and the other one on my left side, and they had a gun. One had a gun. And they asked me to follow them. My instinct was, give them your bag. I tried to give them my bag, and they said, we don't want your handbag. So they asked me to follow me. to follow them, and I followed them to a place I knew because I was born there. So this is a place I know. And they told me, if you dare meet someone and scream, we'll kill both of you. So I followed them to a place where there's a river, and just before we got to the river, they asked me to sit there, and they tore my clothes, and the gang raped me again, 6 of them. And I keep saying these are not the usual thugs, the dirty ones. These were clean men, as in I could even, the colognes they were wearing were very expensive, and the way they conversed. Yeah, so they gang raped me, 6 of them. They sodomized me. At one point, I blacked out because of the pain, and when I came to, they had left, maybe an hour later, and they had put my head on my handbag. So I pulled it from under my head and took my phone. They had not stolen anything from me. I actually had money because I was using money to send all those gifts to children, and I had money for the following day. So they had not stolen anything. I had about 20K with me. They had not stolen anything. And I took my phone, I called my sister-in-law, and I told her this is what has happened, and this is where I am. And I can't come. I can't even try because they had put sticks in me. And look for someone, you guys come and get me. And my sister-in-law came with someone, and like with two friends, and they got me. We went to the police station. You have to report first. Yeah, before you're treated for rape, you have to report. We went, we reported, and I remember when the policeman saw me, he cried. I was so bad. I was bleeding so bad, and they actually asked my friend, don't even take her to Kenyatta, take her to Nairobi Women. So I was taken to Nairobi Women, and I actually spent my Christmas 2017 at Nairobi Women. And I was there for a month, yeah. And at this point I was admitted twice because it was so bad. And the pain, I had so much pain, but the more I was going through issues, the more I was like in a hole that I couldn't get myself out.
Like a survival mode.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Don't give a rat's ass anymore.
Yeah. And this is a story people know. They know I was raped. So I don't care. So I have to put up a face to show them that it is well with me. Yeah. So I moved out now from that place, but I couldn't go far because my second son was about to sit for his class 8 exam, so I couldn't go far. So I went back to work. And at this point, I was put in another department, coaching. And I was coaching at Langata Women Prison, the same place I was in. There's a session that started on April 1st, coaching session, and they were graduating on April 22nd, 2018 now. And at this point, I've gone back to work. I'm still on medication because, no, I had completed medication to prevent HIV. I was HPV and all that, but I was still on medication because I was somehow kind of depressed, so I was on medication. But I was still seeing a counselor. But nizile 2 stories are, yeah, I was not letting go of the pain that was in me. So they graduated on April 22nd, 2018. And the whole of that week we were not going back to work. So we were resting. There's this friend of mine who had come from Greece, and I had not seen her. And she was going back on 28th of April. She asked me, Celine, because I've not seen you, please come today. We spend the whole day because I'm going at night with your children. And that's what we did the whole day. And in the evening, my children said they were going to spend at my auntie's. There's this auntie of mine who has worked with me so much. And the children left with her, and I went back home alone. And since I had eaten, I just took a shower and got into bed. And when I got into bed, in the middle, it was raining so hard at that time. And in the middle of the night, I just saw lights beaming on my face. And I was shocked. I went blank. Yeah. And my mind told me, if these are the same people, they'll take me to that river. And since it's raining, they're going to kill me. But they pulled me out of my bed. And I asked them, who are you? They slapped me. They took me out of my bed and they took me to my sitting room. And they gang raped me for hours. They actually broke my glass and they cut me. I had scars. I actually have small scars on my. And they strangled me. And they would put their gun in my mouth and they sodomized me for hours. Yeah. And this time it was too painful because it's actually the third time. And I've had operations, so it's too painful. And they did that for 3 hours and then they left. But before they left, they took, see that rolling pin, and they put it in me. And when they left, I actually told me God to let me die because I see no point of living with, it's too much. Yeah, it's too much. Yeah. And I actually didn't call anyone. Then I thought of my children and I thought the kind of life I have lived. And I didn't want my children to live that kind of life. And I knew I'm the only one who can give them a life, a good life. So I called people. It was in the middle of the night. Nobody, actually it was 3 a.m. Nobody picked my call. And I wrote a message on Facebook and told people who are in Luakabete, and if they have my number, to call me. Nobody called me. And I came to realize people saw that message. And the person who came from Nairobi. And it's a person I had not even actually met. It's a person who we were conversing with on Facebook. And he came and he took me to the police station and then again to Nairobi Women. And I remember when the doctor saw me, he told me, you have to move. Celine, if you won't move from that area completely, I'll move you. And I was taken, the first thing they did was take me to theater. The very first thing they did was take me to theater. And I was in Nairobi Women for 2 months. That time it was so bad because I couldn't even walk. They had, it was so, I can't even actually explain. Yeah, and I couldn't walk, so I actually even stopped going to work. And I was at this, when I left hospital, before I left the hospital, my pastor called one of my friends and told her, look for a house, I will pay, and move her from that area, completely from that area. So that's what they did. So when I came out of hospital, I moved to a totally new environment. But it was so bad because I had panic attacks. At one point, I was bordering between sanity and insanity. Yeah, and I remember the doctor telling me, now we'll have to take you to Madari for treatment. Yeah, and panic attacks. I would panic in the middle of the road, thinking someone is behind me. And even my neighbor, my next door neighbor, I spoke to her after 1 year. My daughter would leave for school. I left my son with my auntie now because he had not actually done his exams. My other son was in high school, in a boarding school. My daughter would leave for school in the morning. I would lock that door, go back to bed. I wouldn't even take a shower. And then when she comes in the evening, I would send her to the shops, cook for her, and then go back to bed. That was basically my life.
You were just isolating yourself from everybody else.
Yeah. And life continued, and it went on for so long. And then at one point, it's like I snapped back and realized, my children, what kind of life will they live? Because I was also sometimes contemplating suicide. I would buy poison. I would just go stand in the balcony. I was living on 5th floor and decided today I'll drop myself. And I snapped back, and I remember one day I went to my bedroom and locked the door and cried. I cried. At this point, I don't even want to hear anyone telling me about God. was telling them, no, there is no God.
You must have been angry at God also.
So angry at him. But I went to my bedroom, locked the door, and cried out to him. And I told him, God, if you don't heal me, nobody can heal my scars. Absolutely no one, because I had too much in me. And I cried like that for 2 days. Yeah. So when I cried out to God, I felt like I needed to forgive. For me to heal, I needed to forgive some people. And it's a whole lot of story how God took me on the road to forgiveness. I forgive my molesters. I actually sat down with them. Yeah. I forgave my mom. I met my mom for the first time 2 years ago. Yeah.
After she left when you were 4?
Yeah. I didn't even know how she looked like. But I looked for her 2 years ago. And I actually am the one who went down on my knees and told her, please forgive me for the time I have cursed you, not knowing what happened between you and Dad. Yeah. So I forgive so many people, my relatives, for not knowing how to handle me. Yeah. My ex-husband. I forgive so many people. And the more I forgave, the more I was healing. The more I forgive. Actually, at one point, the doctor said, you live with medication for the rest of your life. Because when they put sticks in me, there were some wounds in me that were not healing. But right now, I'm not on any medication. Yeah. God was healing me physically, emotionally, and spiritually, psychologically, because no counselor, no psychiatrist could heal me. Yeah.
I'm lost for words. And I see you have such a beautiful smile even as you narrate, and I'm wondering.
I'm healed completely. Yeah.
So much anguish, so much sorrow, so much anger. So I can't even name the amount of feelings that are coming in my mind. But as you talk to me about this experience, you're saying that now you're healed and you can afford to smile as you give your painful story.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you are a bold lady.
Thank you.
A strong lady.
Thank you.
You're giving hope to people, because I know, when you share our stories, people are even able to identify with us.
Yeah.
And there's someone who's somewhere stuck in a rut. They've been through so much pain, they've been through so much anguish, they have no idea what to do, and they're feeling like they're the only ones. But here you are telling your story and saying, you know what, it's not the end. There is hope, there is restoration. Look at you. You're here to tell your story.
I'm here to tell my story, and also to tell people that it's not done until God says it's done. I've been restored. I actually got married again. Yeah, I had my wedding in 2020. And my children, my first child now is in California University. My second born is in Form 4, and my acting last born is in grade 6.
Acting last born.
Acting last born, yes.
And
and I work with teenage mothers too, just to hold their hands and to tell them it's not done. You're here, you've had your child. Do you give away your life? Do you throw away your life because you've had a child? You can rise again and be someone in the society. Yeah. I also actually not only single mothers, as teenage mothers. So many women, like when I wake up in the morning, I'm always dealing with issues and issues. It's actually so hard to get me. Yeah. Yeah.
I love what you do. You're giving them hope. You're telling them that it's not over, that they can pick up the pieces and move on with life. And I like what you said. It's not over until God says
it's over.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think I'll take that with me. It's not over until God says it's over.
And it's so hard to say, for God to say it's over. Because I'm a believer. Yeah. I'm a born again. I'm a Christian. Yeah. So actually, it's so hard for God to say it's over. Because when he says, I know the thoughts I have for you, to give you a future and a hope, it's deeper than what we think. Because God's thoughts are always good. He has no evil. There's no evil around God. So his thoughts are always good. And he wants his children to live a good life and to have a hope and a future and an expected end. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Celine.
You're welcome.
I know so many people will be inspired. I know you're going to reignite people's hope, and people are going to really, look up to you. Of course, they're looking up to you, but more people look up to you.
Yeah.
And keep sharing your story, keep instilling hope.
Thank you.
Do you
I
have
will.
a parting shot for us?
Let go and let God.
Let go and
Let God, yeah. There's no need of carrying so much pain, bitterness, because this happened to me, this happened to me. There's no need. Let go and let God. Yeah.
All right, guys, you heard it from her. Let go and let God. Remember, healing is the new cool. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.